73 people. 71 of them told me the same sentence, almost word for word. I sat with each of them. Some on porches that didn't exist anymore, just concrete slabs and weeds. Some in trailers, parked on lots where their houses used to stand. Some across folding tables in church basements, where they still came every Tuesday because Tuesday was the day before the storm and they liked the symmetry. They were Hurricane Katrina survivors. Lower 9th Ward, mostly. Some from St. Bernard Parish, a few from Plaquemines. I did not bring a recorder the first time. I brought coffee, and I brought silence, and I brought the only thing they actually wanted, which was someone willing to listen without flinching. I asked each of them one question. What was your worst mistake? 71 of them said the same thing, not the same theme, the same sentence. Quote, 0. One person. 1. Not a crowd, not a Facebook post, not a news interview. One person they trusted, a cousin, a neighbor across the chain link, a guy from work who lived 2 blocks over, the mailman in one case. Which I will get to. They told that one person, and that one person told one person, and inside of 72 hours, the information was a map. A map drawn in someone else's head of someone else's house, with little X marks where the food was and where the cash was, and where the medication was, and where the daughters slept. My name is Raccoon Survival. I run this channel. I am not a professor. I am not a tactical influencer. I am the guy who reads the after-action reports nobody else reads, who calls the people nobody else calls, who sits with widows in basements and makes notes in a paper notebook, because paper notebooks do not get hacked. I have spent the last 11 months building this episode. I am not going to waste your time. What you are about to hear is the most important video I have made on this channel. It is not about gear. It is not about bug-out bags. It is not about which knife. It is about the 11 specific items in your home, your vehicle, your shed, your purse, that should never, under any circumstance, be visible, mentioned, photographed, or hinted at to anyone outside the 4 walls of the people you would die for. I am going to tell you why. I am going to tell you the doctrine. And I am going to tell you, item by item, where the mistake is, where the fix is, and what it costs you when you get it wrong. But first I want to talk about the prepper industry, because I am one of them, technically. I make videos, I have a channel, I sell ideas. So when I say what I am about to say, understand that I am also pointing the finger at myself in the mirror. The prepper industry has lied to you, not maliciously, most of the time, but systematically. Every YouTube channel that gives you a tour of their pantry has just handed 1,000 strangers a shopping list with their address attached. Every Instagram post of the new generator. Every reel of the freezer stocked floor to ceiling. Every __quote_1__ video. Every Costco haul. Every smug little montage of mason jars and soft kitchen lighting. Every single one of these is a billboard that says __quote_2__ the tactical bros, with their plate carriers laid out on tactical mats on tactical YouTube thumbnails. The homestead influencers showing you their root cellar. The doomer guys flexing their ammo cans. They are all making the same mistake the 71 made. They are telling one person what they have. The person they are telling is the algorithm, and the algorithm tells everyone. I want you to understand something. The single greatest survival skill that exists, the one nobody sells because nobody can monetize it, is the ability to look like you have nothing, to be boring, to be forgettable, to be the house on the block that nobody thinks about when the lights go out. The gray man rule. That is the doctrine of this entire video, and it is the doctrine of every single survivor I have ever interviewed who lasted past day 14. The gray man rule, in one sentence. If your neighbor knows what you have, he has already inventoried your home in his head. He has not done it on purpose. He is not a bad person. He is your friend. He brought your trash cans up from the curb that one time. His kid plays with your kid. He waves from the driveway. He is a good guy. And in a stable world, with grocery stores and electricity and 911, he will stay a good guy his entire life. But the gray man rule does not care about stability. The gray man rule is a rule about what happens to good people when the grocery store is empty for 9 days, and his kid has not eaten in 2, and his wife is crying, and he remembers. At 3 in the morning, that you mentioned once, casually, at the barbecue, that you have a chest freezer in the garage and a generator under the back porch. He remembers. He does not forget. He never forgot. He just had no use for the information until day 9. On day 9, the information becomes the most valuable thing in his head, and he acts on it. Not because he is evil, because he is a father. This is what Lawrence Toussaint told me. Lawrence is 68 years old now. He was 47 when Katrina hit. He lived on Tennessee Street in the lower 9th Ward. His house was, in his own words, quote, 3. He liked it that way. His daddy had built it that way. Peeling paint on the outside, cracked driveway, old screen door that slapped in the wind. Inside the house was clean, organized, and provisioned. Lawrence had a false floor in his garden shed. Under that false floor, he had cash, ammunition, a hand-cranked radio, and a sealed metal box with copies of every document his family would ever need. None of his neighbor block had been broken into, every single one. Except his shed. The shed was untouched. The looters had walked past the shed. They had broken into his living room, taken the television, taken the microwave, taken his wife's costume jewelry. They had not touched the shed. Why? Because the shed looked like a shed full of nothing. Lawrence kept rusted tools on a workbench. He kept an old lawnmower in there that did not run. He kept it looking exactly like a shed that nobody would bother with. The looters bothered with what looked valuable. The shed was not on the list. Lawrence told me, "Son, I learned this from my granddaddy who lived through 1927. He used to say, the man who whistles is the man who gets robbed. Don't whistle, don't show, don't tell. The world don't owe you nothing, and the world don't need to know nothing about you." That is the gray man rule, from a 68-year-old man who has lived it twice through ancestral memory and once with his own eyes. The second person I want to introduce you to is Beverly Coltrane. Beverly is a Red Cross volunteer. She has been deployed to 18 disasters. 18. Katrina, Rita, Ike, Sandy, Maria, Harvey, Michael, the Joplin tornado, the Paradise fire. She has stood in 18 different versions of the apocalypse, and she has watched the same thing happen every single time. Beverly is not a prepper. Beverly is a witness. Beverly told me this. By day 3, the helpful neighbors are still helpful. By day 6, the helpful neighbors are tired and scared. By day 9, the helpful neighbors are not helpful anymore. They are not bad. They are not evil. They are hungry, and they are watching their children get hungry. And they are remembering everything they ever heard about who has what. Day 9 is the hinge. After day 9, the world is different. The people who survive day 9 and beyond are the people nobody noticed before day 1. Day 9. Write that number down. Day 9 is the hinge. Day 9 is when the man who waved becomes the man who knocks. Day 9 is when every casual mention you ever made about your generator, your stockpile, your gun safe, your medication, your gold, your cash, your bug-out plan comes back as a knock on the door at 3 in the morning. Day 9. So, we have the doctrine, we have the witnesses, now we get to the 11 items. These are the 11 items in your house, your car, your purse, your phone that you must hide. Not because you are paranoid, because you have been listening to the people who survived. I am going to tell you for each item what the threat is, what the crowd does wrong, what you need to do instead. The mechanism, the why, the science, the history. and how each item connects to the next. Because none of these 11 items work alone. They work as a network. They are a doctrine in physical form. Item number 1, cash, small bills. The threat is the obvious one and also the not obvious one. The obvious one is that when the power goes out, the card readers stop working, the ATMs stop working, the banks lock down, and suddenly the only currency in the world is paper currency in your hand. Within 72 hours of any major regional event, paper cash becomes the only working economy. We saw it in Katrina, we saw it in Sandy, we saw it in the Texas freeze of 2021. The first thing that fails after the storm is the digital economy. Cash works. Cash always works. The not obvious threat is what the crowd does wrong. The crowd, when they finally get around to keeping cash at home, does 3 things wrong. 1. They keep it all in one place. 2. They keep it in large bills. 3. They tell someone where it is. All 3 of these are death sentences in a long event. Large bills are useless in a collapse. Try giving a $100 bill to a guy who is selling you a can of beans on day 8. He cannot make change. He will not make change. He will either take the whole 100 for the can of beans, which is robbery in slow motion, or he will refuse the sale, and you will go hungry holding paper. The bills you need are 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s. Mostly 5s and 10s. A bag of small bills is a bag of options. A bag of hundreds is a bag of arguments. What you do is you build a cash reserve broken into denominations in 3 or 4 physically separate hiding spots in your home and 1 outside your home. You do not write down where it is. You do not tell your spouse in front of your children. You do not tell your children at all until they are old enough to drive. You do not keep it in a safe, because a safe is a sign that says, here is the valuable stuff. You keep it inside hollowed out books. You keep it inside the hem of curtains you would never wash. You keep it in a mason jar buried at the base of a fence post in your backyard. You keep it taped to the inside of the lid of a paint can in the garage labeled primer. You keep it boring. The science of cash hiding is the science of search patterns. Every burglar, every looter, every desperate neighbor who has decided he has the right to your stuff runs a search pattern when he comes in. The pattern is the same in every country and every century. Bedroom first, master closet, dresser drawers, under the mattress, kitchen drawers, freezer, then living room. That is 90% of the search. If you put your cash in any of those locations, you are putting it on the visible search path. If you put it in a paint can in the garage labeled primer, it is invisible. The multiplier on cash is huge. Cash buys food. Cash buys gas. Cash buys silence from the wrong people. Cash buys passage. Cash buys medicine on a corner where the pharmacy used to be. Cash, in small bills, in many places, is freedom. But cash alone is not enough, because the moment you pull out a roll of bills in front of the wrong person, you have just told him what you have, and we are back to the 71, which brings us to item number 2. Item number 2, a Faraday bag for your phone. I want you to think for a second about what your phone actually is. Your phone is not a phone. Your phone is a confession. Your phone is a confession booth that broadcasts 24 hours a day to anyone with the equipment to listen. And the equipment is cheap. The equipment is on Amazon. The equipment is in the hands of every halfway competent 14-year-old with a YouTube tutorial and a grudge. Your phone tells the world where you are. Your phone tells the world where you have been. Your phone tells the world how often you go to the storage unit nobody knows about. Your phone tells the world that you are at home right now, asleep, with the lights off, and your front door is the closest entry point. Your phone tells advertisers your shopping list, which means it tells anyone who has bought that data your shopping list, which means it tells anyone who has stolen that data your shopping list. And your shopping list, when you are a prepper, is the inventory of your home. A Faraday bag is a small cloth or metal-lined pouch that blocks all radio signals in and out of the device inside it. You put your phone in the bag closes, and the phone goes silent. No GPS, no cellular, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no nothing. The phone, for all intents and purposes, has vanished from the planet. The crowd does this wrong in two ways. The first way is they do not own a Faraday bag at all. They have heard of them, they think they are paranoid, they think only government agents need them. They are wrong. The second way is they own a Faraday bag and they only use it when they are doing something they consider sensitive, which means the pattern of when the phone goes dark itself becomes a signal. If your phone is broadcasting from your house every single day for a year, and then one Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. it goes silent for 40 minutes, that silence is louder than any signal. Anyone watching the data knows you just did something you did not want recorded. The pattern is the tell. What you do is you use the Faraday bag at random intervals. You let your phone go dark for 10 minutes at a time, multiple times a day, every day, for no reason at all. You make the silence boring. You make the silence the baseline. You also keep the Faraday bag near the door, and anytime you leave the house to do anything related to your preparation, your stockpile, your supply runs, your scouting, the phone goes in the bag before you start the car. The mechanism here is signals intelligence in reverse. You are denying the data. You are starving the systems that watch you. The multiplier is enormous because every other item on this list assumes that you have not been tracked to wherever you put it. If your phone has been broadcasting your trips to the storage unit for 6 months, your storage unit is not a secret. It is a public record. Hide the phone. Hide it from the world. Hide it from yourself. This connects directly to item 3, because once your phone is in a bag, you cannot use Google Maps. Which means you need to know where you are going. Item number 3, a paper map of your neighborhood and the surrounding county and the state. I want to tell you about the second day after Katrina. Beverly Coltrane was on the ground. The cellular network in southeastern Louisiana was at 3% capacity. 3. The towers that had not been knocked down were overloaded. The ones that were running were rationed for emergency services. The civilian population had no GPS, no Google Maps, no turn-by-turn directions. They had only what they had memorized and what they had on paper. Beverly told me that she watched a family of 4 sit in a car at an intersection for 20 minutes because they did not know which way to turn. They had lived in New Orleans for 12 years. They could not navigate their own city without a phone. They sat at that intersection until a man in a pickup truck came up and offered to lead them out. They followed him. He led them to a place that was not a shelter. I am not going to tell you the rest of that story because it is not the kind of story this channel tells. I will tell you that they survived. I will tell you that they wished they had not followed the man with the pickup truck. I will tell you that a paper map would have prevented all of it. A paper map costs $8 at any truck stop. A laminated paper map of your county costs $12. A road atlas of your state costs $15. For $35, you can have everything you need to navigate your entire region without a single electron of digital assistance. The crowd does this wrong because the crowd thinks the GPS will always work. The GPS will not always work. The GPS goes down in solar storms. The GPS goes down in war. The GPS goes down when the cell tower goes down, because most civilian devices use assisted GPS that requires the cell network to function quickly. Even the dedicated GPS units rely on satellites that can be jammed, spoofed, or simply fail. Paper does not fail. Paper has worked for 2,000 years. Paper will work tomorrow. What you do is you buy 3 maps, one of your immediate neighborhood, drawn or printed at high detail, one of your county, one of your state. You mark on them, in pencil, 3 things. The location of every gas station within 20 miles, the location of every hospital and clinic within 30 miles, the location of every body of fresh water within 50 miles. You do not mark your stockpile. You do not mark your bug-out location. You do not mark anything that, if the map is found, would tell the finder anything they did not already know. The map is a public document, with private knowledge in your head about how to read it. You put the map in your car. You put a copy in your bug-out bag. You put a copy in a drawer at home. The drawer is not a sock drawer. The drawer is a junk drawer. The map is folded under a pile of takeout menus and old receipts. It is camouflaged by clutter. It is invisible because it is uninteresting. The mechanism is redundancy. The phone fails, the map works. The bridge to item 4 is that the map represents knowledge that exists outside the digital economy. And there is one more piece of knowledge that must exist outside the digital economy, or your entire life collapses on day 1. Item number 4, a paper book of your passwords. This is the one nobody talks about. This is the one that every cybersecurity professional pretends does not exist because it violates every rule they were taught in a sterile classroom by people who had never been through a hurricane. I'm going to tell you something now that the security industry will hate me for saying. You need a physical, paper, handwritten, hidden book of all of your passwords. Every cybersecurity person watching this is now writing a comment about how dangerous this is. Listen. Listen to me. The threat model matters. If you are a CIA officer in Beijing, do not write down your passwords. If you are a regular American with a regular life and a regular family in a regular town that is one hurricane, one wildfire, one ice storm, one earthquake, one regional power outage away from losing every digital service in your life, you need a paper book of passwords. Here is why. When the power goes out for 9 days, your password manager does not work. When the cellular network goes down, your two-factor authentication does not work. When you are standing in a Red Cross shelter trying to access your bank account from a borrowed laptop because you need to wire money to your sister-in-law to get her family out of a flooded zone, you do not remember the 17-character password you generated 3 years ago and let your phone autofill ever since. You do not remember it. Nobody remembers it. The password manager that knows it is on a phone with a dead battery and no service. The crowd does this wrong by trusting 100% in the digital password manager. The password manager is fantastic in normal times. It is useless when the digital infrastructure has failed. The fix is not to abandon the password manager. The fix is to write down, on paper, in your own handwriting, the master password to the manager and a list of the 20 most important account credentials in your life: banking, insurance, mortgage, email, two-factor backup codes, the IRS, your medical portal. Your kid's school portal, the accounts that matter when everything else has stopped. You hide this book the way Lawrence Toussaint hid his cash. You do not put it in a desk drawer. You do not put it in a filing cabinet. You do not put it in a __quote _8 _ folder. You put it inside the cover of a book on your bookshelf that you would never read. A textbook, a thick, boring book. A book about the history of agriculture in 19th century Belgium. A book that nobody, when ransacking your house, would ever pick up. The password book is hidden in the most boring object in your home. Boring is invisible. Boring is the doctrine. You also keep a duplicate copy at a trusted relative's house in another state, sealed, unmarked, inside another boring book. Because if your house burns down with the original inside it, the duplicate is the bridge back to your digital life. The mechanism is the same as the cache. Boring beats clever. The bridge to item 5 is that knowledge in your head and on your paper is the foundation. But the foundation only matters if you can defend the house that sits on top of it. Item number 5. Home defense tools that are legal in your state. I am going to be very careful with this section. I am going to talk about home defense in a way that does not sensationalize it, does not glorify it, and does not pretend that the goal is conflict. The goal is never conflict. The goal is deterrence. The goal is to be the house that the wrong person decides is too much trouble. The threat is straightforward. In the days after a major event, the social contract dissolves. The thin blue line gets thinner. The 911 system stops answering. The response times that were already long become infinite. You are, for a window of days or weeks, the entire police force of your own home. That window is real. The FEMA After-Action Review of the Hurricane Katrina response, in its section on civil unrest in Orleans Parish, documented hundreds of home invasions during the 9 to 14-day window after landfall. The data is public. The conclusions are clear. The people who were prepared to defend their homes defended them. The people who were not did not. The crowd does this wrong in two opposite directions. One side of the crowd thinks that home defense means a single firearm in a nightstand and that this is sufficient. It is not. A firearm in a nightstand is one tool. Home defense is a system. The other side of the crowd buys an arsenal, takes photos of the arsenal, posts the arsenal on social media, and tells everyone in the bar about the arsenal. The arsenal is now a target. The arsenal is now the reason someone breaks into your house specifically, rather than someone else's. The arsenal has become a magnet for exactly the threat it was supposed to deter. What you do is, you build a layered defense system that is appropriate to your state's laws, your skill level, your training, and your household composition. You do not photograph it. You do not discuss it. You do not show it to your friends. You train with it quietly. You store it according to law and according to common sense. You make your home, from the outside, look exactly like the home next to yours. The boring house, the forgettable house, the house that is not worth the trouble. Layer 1 is the perimeter. Solid doors, long screws in the strike plates, reinforced jambs, window film that delays a smash and grab by 90 seconds, which is more than enough time. Motion-activated lights that do not announce themselves, but turn on when something the size of a person moves within 10 feet of the door. Layer 2 is the interior, a safe room concept. A room with a solid core door, a phone, a flashlight, and a way to call for help that does not depend on the cellular network. Layer 3 is the personal layer. Whatever your state allows, whatever you have trained on, whatever you can deploy under stress, in the dark, with adrenaline making your hands shake. The training matters more than the tool. The tool without the training is a prop. You hide the existence of the entire system. The window film is invisible. The reinforced strike plates are invisible from outside. The safe room is just a room with a slightly heavier door. The personal layer is locked away. Nobody knows. Nobody sees. The whole system is gray. The mechanism is where the entire prescription supply chain failed for 40 days in some areas. The pharmacy was not open in Venezuela, where the documented memoirs in the Caracas Chronicles archives describe families watching grandparents die from the absence of medications that had been routine 3 years earlier. The pharmacy will not be open after the next event either, and insulin does not wait. Heart medication does not wait. The body does not negotiate with the supply chain. What you do is, you have a conversation with your doctor. A real conversation. You explain that you live in a region prone to natural disasters. You ask for a 90-day supply. You ask for a paper copy of every prescription, signed and dated, that you can take to any pharmacy in the country if you have to evacuate. You build a buffer of at least 60 days beyond your normal refill cycle. You rotate the stock so the oldest is used first and nothing expires. You hide the medication the way you hide everything else. Not in the medicine cabinet, where every burglar in human history has looked first. Not on the kitchen counter, in a sealed, opaque, climate-controlled container in a place that is boring. The closet of a guest room, a drawer in the laundry room, a box in the garage labeled Christmas decorations. Boring is invisible. Boring is doctrine. The mechanism is biological time. The body has a clock. The clock does not care about your evacuation. The clock does not care about the storm. The clock cares only about whether the molecule it needs is in the bloodstream at the right time. The medication is the molecule. The buffer is your respect for the clock. The bridge to item 7 is that medication, like cash, like maps, like passwords, is one of those things that must exist in more than one place. Because if the place burns, the contents burn. And there is one category of supply that, more than any other, must be hidden somewhere outside your house. Item number 7, an off-site food cache. I want to tell you something Lawrence Toussaint told me near the end of our last conversation. He said, "Son, after the storm, my house was 12 feet underwater. Everything I had inside that house was gone. The water sat for 3 weeks. By the time it went down, the food I had stockpiled was rotten. The water had ruined every can. The labels were gone. The cans were swelling. I threw out $400 of food I had spent 2 years building up. The only food I had left was the food I had cached at my cousin's place in Homa, 50 miles north. That food, that cache, is the only reason my wife ate that month. Off-site food cache. Say it with me. Off-site food cache. This is the item that, more than any of the others on this list, separates the people who think they are prepared from the people who actually are. Because everyone knows about home stockpiles. Everyone has seen a pantry full of cans. Almost nobody has thought through the simple question of what happens when the house is gone. The house can flood. The house can burn. The house can be looted. The house can be condemned by an inspector who will not let you back inside. The house is one point of failure for everything inside it. The crowd does this wrong by putting all of their food in one place. One pantry, one basement, one garage. The whole family supply in a single physical location. That is one event away from total loss. The fix is to break the food supply into pieces and put one of those pieces somewhere your house cannot affect. The off-site cache should be at least 25 miles from your home. That is the distance in most regional events that separates the impact zone from the unaffected zone. It should be at a location that is yours to access without explanation. The cousin's garage, the aunt's basement, a storage unit paid annually in cash. A buried container on land that you own or that a trusted family member owns. The cache should contain at least 30 days of shelf-stable food per family member, water purification, basic cooking equipment, and a small amount of cash. You should never tell anyone outside your nuclear family that the cache exists. Not the storage unit clerk, not the cousin's spouse, not your own children until they're old enough. The mechanism is geographic redundancy. One location, one event. 2 locations separated by geography, 2 events required. The probability of both being destroyed simultaneously is vanishingly small. The bridge to item 8 is that food is fuel for the body, but the body needs fuel for the mind too. And the fuel for the mind in a long event is information. And information, when the digital infrastructure has failed, comes through one channel. Item number 8, an analog radio. The radio is the most underrated item on this entire list. The radio is the item that everyone agrees they should have, that almost nobody actually owns, that costs almost nothing, and that has saved more lives in regional disasters than any other single piece of gear that is not a generator. The radio is the lifeline. When the cellular network is down, when the internet is down, when the television is down, when the phone is down, the radio is up. The radio is up because radio waves do not need infrastructure beyond a transmitter and a receiver. The transmitter is somewhere within a few hundred miles of you, broadcasting on AM, FM, shortwave, or NOAA weather frequencies. The receiver is in your hand. The radio just works. It has always just worked. It will always just work until human civilization no longer broadcasts radio waves, which is to say, longer than you will live. The crowd does this wrong by buying a single battery-powered radio, throwing it in a drawer, never testing it, and discovering on day 1 that the batteries are dead. The fix is to own a hand-cranked radio with a built-in solar panel and a built-in flashlight and a built-in USB output. These radios cost between $25 and $60. They last for years. They never need batteries because the crank powers them. They will receive AM, FM, NOAA weather, and in some models, shortwave. They are the single best dollar-for-dollar piece of gear in the entire prepping universe, and they sit in drawers across America, untested, dust-covered, forgotten. What you do is, you buy two. One for the house, one for the car. You test them once a month. You crank them. You listen for the broadcast. You make sure they work. You put them in a place where you can grab them in the dark, in a panic, with one hand. The drawer next to the bed, the glove compartment of the car. You also write down on paper the AM and FM frequencies of the local emergency broadcast stations, the NOAA weather frequencies for your region, and the shortwave frequencies for major international broadcasters. You tape that list to the back of the radio, because in a panic, you will not remember the frequency. And the radio without the frequency is a paperweight. The mechanism is the most fundamental fact of physics on this entire list. Electromagnetic waves do not need permission. They do not need a server. They do not need a subscription. They do not need a login. They travel from a transmitter to a receiver, across hundreds of miles, through walls, through weather, through the night. The radio is the only piece of gear in your home that connects you to the outside world without any intermediary. That is not a feature. That is a miracle. And almost nobody respects it. The bridge to item 9 is that information is one thing, but the radio cannot carry you. To carry yourself, you need motion. And motion, in a regional collapse, depends on one specific item that almost everyone gets wrong. Item number 9, a spare car key, stored outside the car. This sounds small. It is not small. This is the item that, in 3 of the 73 Katrina interviews I conducted, was the literal difference between leaving and staying. 3 families lost their primary key in the chaos of evacuation. 3 families could not start their vehicles. 3 families had to abandon their cars and try to walk, or hitchhike, or wait for buses that were not coming. 2 of those 3 families had spare keys, but the spare keys were inside the car, which was locked. Which was the problem. The threat is loss. The threat is theft. The threat is the moment of panic when you need to leave in 90 seconds and you cannot find the key. Anyone who has lived through a real evacuation knows that the brain stops working correctly under that kind of pressure. You will look at the key on the counter and not see it. You will pat your pocket 6 times and feel nothing. You will tear the house apart, and the key will be somewhere you have already looked twice. This is the human nervous system under the stress of evacuation. It is not your fault. It is biology. The fix is redundancy. The crowd does this wrong by keeping the spare key inside the house on a hook by the front door, where it is one fire, one flood, one looting, one panicked moment away from being just as gone as the primary. The fix is to keep the spare key in 3 places. 1 inside the house, hidden, not on a hook. 1 on your physical person at all times, in a small zippered pocket of a jacket you wear daily, or on a chain around your neck under your shirt. And 1 outside the home entirely, in a magnetic key holder under a non-obvious panel of the vehicle itself. No, do not do that. That is the first place every thief looks. Instead, taped inside the meter box on the side of your house, buried in a small waterproof container at the base of a fence post, with a trusted relative who lives within driving distance. Anywhere that, if your house is on fire and you are standing in the front yard in your pajamas, you can still get to the key and start the car. You do not tell anyone where the key is. You do not show anyone. You do not hand the location of the spare key to the friendly neighbor as a courtesy. You do not give it to the dog walker. You keep it gray. The mechanism is fault tolerance. Engineering systems are designed with redundancy because every single component will eventually fail. Your evacuation plan needs the same. The bridge to item 10 is that the car is fuel for movement, but movement still costs something at every checkpoint. every transaction, every roadside negotiation. Cash works for the first weeks. After the first weeks, cash does something strange. Cash starts to lose its meaning. Item number 10. Small silver and gold coins. I am not a gold bug. I am not a precious metals salesman. I am not going to tell you that the dollar is collapsing tomorrow. I am going to tell you something more boring and more historically true. In every documented long-term collapse of the last 100 years, paper currency loses purchasing power and metal currency holds it. Weimar Germany, Argentina repeatedly, Zimbabwe, Yugoslavia in the 90s, Venezuela in the 2010s, where the documented memoirs in the Caracas Chronicles describe families trading single 1/10 ounce gold coins for a month of food in 2018. The pattern is 2,000 years old. The pattern will repeat. It always repeats. I am not telling you to put your retirement in gold. I am telling you to own a small amount of small denomination silver and gold coins as one component of a layered financial defense. Small denomination. That word matters. The crowd does this wrong by buying a single 1-ounce gold coin worth $2,000 and thinking they have prepared. The single-ounce coin is useless in a collapse, for the same reason the $100 bill is useless. You cannot make change. You cannot trade a 1-ounce gold coin for a week of food, because the seller cannot give you back $2,000 worth of beans. You will end up trading the whole coin for a fraction of its value because you have no smaller denomination. What you want is 1/10 ounce gold coins, sometimes called fractional gold. You want 1 ounce silver coins, the standard American silver eagle or the Canadian maple leaf, or the recognized sovereign equivalents. You want rolls of pre-1965 American silver dimes and quarters, sometimes called junk silver, which contain 90% silver and trade for their melt value plus a small premium. These small denominations are the working currency of a real collapse. The big coins are storage. The small coins are commerce. You hide these coins the way you hide everything else on this list, not in a safe with a sign on it that says __quote _11__. Not in a drawer. Not in a box on the closet shelf labeled __quote _12__. You hide them in a mason jar, buried at the base of a tree in your backyard. You hide them taped to the bottom of a drawer that has been screwed back into the cabinet, so the drawer no longer opens easily. You hide them inside the hollow of a curtain rod. You hide them inside a paint can in the garage labeled __quote _13__, next to the cash. You spread them across multiple locations because a single discovery should never lose you the entire reserve. You do not tell anyone you have them, not the coin dealer who sold them to you beyond the transaction itself. You buy them in cash, in person, in small lots from multiple dealers across multiple months. You do not build an Amazon order history of precious metals purchases. You do not become a customer in a database that, if leaked, becomes a shopping list for someone with bad intentions and your home address. The mechanism is the oldest mechanism on this list. Metal has been money for 5,000 years. Paper has been money for 300. Digital has been money for 30. The longest running form of money on the planet is metal, and the reason is simple. Metal does not depend on the trust of an institution. Metal is what it is. A 1-ounce silver coin is 1 ounce of silver whether the bank is open or not, whether the government is functioning or not, whether the internet is working or not. Metal is the floor under the financial system. When everything above the floor collapses, the floor is still there. The bridge to item 11 is the most counterintuitive bridge on this entire list, because item 11 is not about money. Item 11 is not about defense. Item 11 is not about food or water or medication. Item 11 is about identity, about the bureaucratic, paperwork, document-driven question of who you are when every database that knew you has been wiped, and it costs almost nothing. Item number 11, paper photographs of your family. This is the item that everyone laughs at. This is the item that gets cut from every other prepping list because it sounds sentimental. It is not sentimental. It is documentary. It is the item that after Hurricane Katrina, after Hurricane Maria, after the Paradise wildfire, after Sandy, separated the families who could rebuild their identities from the families who spent the next 18 months in administrative hell trying to prove they were the people they had always been. Beverly Coltrane told me this, quote, 14 6 to 9 months. Read that again. 6 to 9 months of bureaucratic exile because of the absence of a printed photograph. The crowd does this wrong because the crowd assumes that all of their photos are safely on the cloud. The cloud is a wonderful thing in normal times. The cloud is useless when you are standing in a Red Cross shelter with no phone, no charger, no Wi-Fi, no remembered password, and no way to access the photo of your daughter when she was 3 years old that the State Department needs to verify your relationship to her for the replacement of her stolen birth certificate. The cloud is not a backup. The cloud is a single point of failure that lives somewhere else. The fix is the cheapest item on this entire list. You print on photo paper a small set of photographs of every member of your family. Recent photos, clear photos, front-facing photos. You include at least one photo of each adult holding each child, because that documents the relationship. You include at least one wedding photo if you are married, because that documents the relationship. You include photos of every important document, the front and back of every driver's license, every passport, every birth certificate, every social security card, every insurance card, every vehicle title, every property deed. Yes, photographs of the documents themselves, printed on paper, stored separately from the originals. You hide these photos in a fireproof, waterproof, small pouch. You keep one copy at home, hidden in the boring book on the boring shelf next to the password book. You keep one copy at the off-site cache. You keep one copy with a trusted relative in another state. The photos are small. The pouch is the size of a paperback. The cost is $40 including the pouch. The value, in the wrong week of your life, is 6 to 9 months of your existence. The mechanism is identity reconstruction. The bureaucratic apparatus of modern life is built on the assumption that you can prove who you are. When the systems that proved who you are have been destroyed, the photographs are the bridge. They are how you re-enter the system. They are how you become a person again, on paper, in the eyes of the institutions that decide whether you can work, drive, fly, vote, marry, divorce, inherit, or be buried under your own name. That is the 11. Cash in small bills, Faraday bag, paper map, paper password book, layered home defense legal in your state, backup prescriptions, off-site food cache, analog radio, spare car key outside the car, small silver and gold coins, paper family photographs. 11 items. None of them dramatic, none of them tactical. None of them the kind of thing you would see in a Hollywood prepping movie. All of them the kind of thing you would find in the hidden corners of the homes of the people who actually survived. Now I want to talk about how these 11 items work together. Because I have given you a list, and a list can be misunderstood as a shopping cart. This is not a shopping cart. This is a system. The 11 items are a network, and the network has a topology, and the topology is what makes the network resilient. Think about it this way. The cache buys you the food when the cards stop working. The Faraday bag protects the cache by hiding the patterns of where you spend it. The paper map gets you to the off-site cache when the GPS is down. The password book gets you back into the financial system when the digital infrastructure recovers. The home defense system protects the cash, the food, the medication, the radio, the photos, the coins, all of it, until you can move them. The medication keeps the people who use these tools alive long enough for the tools to matter. The offsite cache means that if your house is gone, the network is still functional. The radio tells you when it is safe to move and which roads are open. The spare key gets the car started so you can use the map to get to the cache. The coins hold value across the months when paper currency may not. The photographs let you become a legal person again on the other side of the event. Each item supports the others. Remove any one of them and the network has a hole. Remove 3 or 4 of them and the network collapses. The crowd, when it preps, focuses on 1 or 2 items, usually food and water and a firearm. The crowd has built a network with 8 holes. The crowd will lose. The system is the prep. The list is just the parts. Now the dark truth. The truth that I have been circling this entire video. The truth that, if you take nothing else from this video, I want you to take. The neighbor who waves from the driveway on day 1 is the neighbor who knocks on day 9. I want you to sit with that. I want you to feel uncomfortable about it. Because if you are anything like me when I first heard it from Lawrence Toussaint, your reaction will be denial. Not my neighbor. Not Bob. Bob is a good guy. Bob mowed my lawn that one time when I was on vacation. Bob's wife brought us a casserole when our son was born. Not Bob. I am not telling you that Bob is a bad person. I am telling you that Bob is a person. And persons, all of them, including you, including me, including Lawrence Toussaint, including Beverly Coltrane, including the Pope, are subject to the same biological and psychological pressures that have governed human behavior for 200,000 years. When Bob's children have not eaten for 2 days, Bob will do things that Bob, on day 1, would have sworn under oath that he would never do. Bob is not the threat. Bob's children's hunger is the threat. Bob is just the delivery mechanism. Selko Begovic, the Bosnian survivor I cited at the beginning, has written about this for 20 years. He survived the siege of a city that lost everything in the early 1990s. He has said, repeatedly, in interviews and in his book, that the single most dangerous threat in a long-term collapse is not the foreign army, not the criminal gang, not the foreign organized chaos. The single most dangerous threat is the man across the street who, 3 months in, decides that your supply is the only path to his family's survival. That man, Selko says, will come. That man, Selko says, comes for everybody who was visible. That man, Selko says, does not come for the people who looked like they had nothing. This is the thing the prepping industry does not want you to understand, because the prepping industry sells gear. The prepping industry sells flashlights and freeze-dried meals and tactical pants and YouTube subscriptions. The prepping industry does not sell silence. Silence is free. Silence cannot be packaged. Silence cannot be advertised. Silence does not show up on a thumbnail or an unboxing video. And silence is the single most important thing you will ever own as a prepper. So here is the ultimatum. I do not give ultimatums lightly. I give them when the data is overwhelming and the time is short. The data on this episode is overwhelming. The time. Given the trajectory of regional events in the United States over the last decade, is short. You have until the end of this week. Not next month, not when you get around to it, not when your tax refund comes in, the end of this week. By Sunday night, you will have done the following. You will have broken your cash reserve into small bills and hidden it in at least 3 locations, one of them outside your home. You will have ordered or purchased a Faraday bag and tested it. You will have bought paper maps of your neighborhood, county, and state, and marked them with the locations that matter. You will have written, by hand, on paper, the master password to your password manager and the credentials for the 20 most important accounts in your life, and you will have hidden that book in the most boring object in your house. You will have audited your home defense, layer by layer, and noted the gaps. You will have called your doctor about a 90-day supply of every prescription in your household. You will have begun to assemble an off-site food cache, even if it starts as one box at a relative's house. You will have purchased a hand-cranked radio and tested it and written the frequencies on the back. You will have placed a spare car key in at least one location outside the vehicle. You will have begun to acquire small denomination silver, even if it is a single roll of pre-1965 dimes from a local coin shop. You will have printed paper photographs of every member of your family and hidden them in a fireproof pouch. 11 items. By Sunday night. Or you will hand them over later, under different circumstances, to people who did not earn them. I want to come back one more time to the 73, because I owe them this. They told me their stories so that I could tell you. They were not paid. They did not want fame. Most of them did not want me to use their real names, which is why most of them appear in this episode under different names than the ones on their birth certificates. Lawrence Toussaint is a real person, but Lawrence Toussaint is not the name on his social security card. He asked me to use a name that was not his. He asked me specifically because he did not want his neighbors today, 20 years later, to know that he had been the one with the false floor in the shed. The gray man rule does not have an expiration date. He still lives quietly. He still looks like he has nothing. He still survives. Beverly Coltrane is a real person, and that is closer to her real name. She gave me permission to use it because, as she said, "I am too old to care, son, and I want people to listen." Beverly is 71. She is still on the volunteer roster for the Red Cross. She has told me that she expects to be deployed at least 3 more times before her knees give out. She has told me that every deployment she watches the same human pattern unfold, and every deployment she goes home and writes letters to anyone who will listen. This episode is one of those letters, transcribed. I want to tell you about the 72nd person, the one who did not say the same sentence as the other 71. Her name, the one I am using, is Marguerite Boudreau. Marguerite was 81 when I interviewed her. She had lived in the same house in St. Bernard Parish for 54 years. She survived Betsy in 1965. She survived Camille in 1969. She survived Andrew in 92. She survived Katrina. She survived Rita 3 weeks after Katrina. She survived Ike. She survived Isaac. She survived Ida. 6 major hurricanes, 1 house, 1 woman. I asked Marguerite, near the end of our conversation, what her secret was. I expected something tactical, something specific, something I could put in this video. She thought about it for a long time. She finally said, "Honey, I never told nobody nothing. Not once in 54 years did anybody on this block ever know what I had inside my house. They thought I was a poor old widow. I let them think it. I had what I had, and I kept what I kept, and I never said a word. That is the whole secret. There is no other secret." 54 years of silence, 6 hurricanes, 1 woman, still standing. The 73rd person was a man whose story I cannot tell because he asked me not to, and I keep my promises. I will only walked out on day 12 carrying everything they had needed for the entire event. When I asked him why he had told no one, even his wife, he said something that I have thought about every day since. He said, "I love my wife, but I have known my wife for 30 years, and I have known myself for 60. The only person I trust to keep the secret is the person I have been watching the longest." I am not telling you to keep secrets from your spouse. That is his life, not mine. I am telling you that the doctrine of silence is older and deeper than any of us understand. The people who survive are the people who, by temperament or by training, have learned to hold information like Marguerite Boudreau held it. Quietly, permanently, without exception. I want to say something now about what this video is not. This video is not a manifesto. This video is not a call to mistrust your community. This video is not a recommendation to become a hermit, to stop loving your neighbors, to stop being kind, to stop being the person who brings the casserole when someone has a baby. The opposite. Be that person. Bring the casserole, wave from the driveway, help with the trash cans, be a good neighbor. Be a good citizen. Be a good person. The gray man is not a bad neighbor. The gray man is the best neighbor on the block. The gray man is the one who shows up. The gray man is the one who helps. The gray man simply does not, ever, under any circumstance, advertise his preparation. He does not tell. He does not show. He does not photograph. He does not post. He does not brag. He does not warn. He does not lecture. He does not, when his neighbor is unprepared and worried, say, "Well, I have a basement full of food, so I will be fine." He does not say it because saying it puts a target on his basement. He says, instead, "I worry about it too. We should all be doing more." And then he goes home and quietly does more and tells nobody. Kindness in public, preparation in private. That is the doctrine. That is the entire doctrine. That is what I learned from 73 people across 11 months and 3,000 miles of travel. Now I want to address the comments I know are coming. Because I have made enough of these videos to know what shows up in the comments after I publish. Someone will write, "This is paranoid." It is not paranoid. Paranoia is fear without evidence. The evidence is in the FEMA report. The evidence is in the Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's logs. The evidence is in Selko Begovich's book. The evidence is in the Caracas Chronicles archive. The evidence is in Joseph Treaster's reporting from Katrina. The evidence is sitting on my desk in a folder 3 inches thick. Paranoia is fear without evidence. This is preparation with evidence. The two are not the same. Someone will write __quote_21__. It is not doomer content. Doomer content predicts the end of the world. I am not predicting the end of the world. I am predicting the next regional disaster, which is statistically certain because regional disasters happen on a schedule that is documented by every insurance company in North America. The next hurricane is coming. The next wildfire is coming. The next ice storm is coming. The next earthquake is coming. The next regional power outage is coming. None of these is the end of the world. Each of them is the end of normal life for a few weeks, for a few million people. The 11 items are not for the end of the world. The 11 items are for the next Tuesday when the lights go out and stay out. Someone will write, Quote 22. Your neighbor is a good person. I am not arguing with you about your neighbor. I am telling you that goodness is a function of context. Goodness in a stable society is one thing. Goodness in a society that has lost the ability to feed itself is a different thing. The goodness is the same. The context is different. Context determines outcome. Your neighbor in context A will bring you a casserole. Your neighbor in context B will knock on your door at 3 in the morning on day 9. Both of those neighbors are the same person. The variable is not the person. The variable is the day. Someone will write __quote_23__. I am not selling anything in this video. There is no affiliate link. There is no sponsor. There is no merchandise. There is no course. The 11 items I have described can be assembled for under $400 from any combination of Walmart, Amazon, your local coin shop, your doctor's office, your hardware store, and a printer. I do not benefit from your purchase of any of them. I benefit, if at all, from your survival. Because if you survive the next regional event, you will tell other people about this channel. That is my business model. Survival creates word of mouth. Death does not. Someone will write, the 73 Katrina survivors are not real. They are real. Their names are not, in most cases, the names I have used. Their stories are real. The 71 who said the same sentence are real. I have notes from every interview in a paper notebook, written in pen, dated, signed, and locked in a place that nobody but me can access. The notebook will outlive me. The stories will outlive both of us. They are real. I have been talking for a long time. I want to bring this in for a landing. Here's what I want you to do when this video ends. I do not want you to leave a comment. I do not want you to subscribe. I do not want you to like the video. Those things are nice and I appreciate them, but they are not what matters. What matters is this. I want you to stand up from wherever you are sitting. I want you to walk to the room in your house where you keep the most important thing you own. I want you to look at that room. I want you to ask yourself, if a stranger walked into my house right now in the middle of the night with bad intentions, in a week when the police are not coming, how many of the 11 items on this list would that stranger find in the first 10 minutes? Be honest. Count them. If the answer is more than 2, you have work to do this week. If the answer is more than 4, you have work to do tonight. If the answer is more than 6, you have work to do right now, before you go to sleep, before you do anything else. Because right now, as you stand in that room, you are the 72nd person in my interviews. You are the person who has not yet made the mistake, but has all the materials assembled to make it. You are one casual conversation, one Instagram post, one barbecue brag, one careless word away from joining the 71 who told me, in 71 different houses, in 71 different versions of the same broken voice, I told one person what I had. That was my mistake. Do not be the 72nd. Be Marguerite Boudreau. Be the woman who survived 6 hurricanes by saying nothing for 54 years. Be the man who walked out of his house on day 12 carrying everything he needed because he had told no one for 18 years, not even his wife. Be Lawrence Toussaint, who hid the cash and the radio and the documents under a false floor in a shed that looked like nothing because his grandfather had taught him in 1964 that the man who whistles is the man who gets robbed. Be the gray house on the gray block in the gray town. Be the one nobody thinks about. Be the one nobody writes about. Be the one nobody films. Be the one who was alive on day 15 because nobody noticed you on day 1. Stockpile quiet or stockpile nothing. That is the entire video. That is the entire doctrine. That is the entire thing I came here to tell you. There is nothing else. There is no secret 12th item. There is no upsell. There is no part 2 unless you count the next episode in the series, which will be different in topic but the same in spirit. There is only this. 11 items. 1 doctrine. 1 week to act. I want to leave you with one more sentence from Beverly Coltrane. She said it to me at the end of our last conversation, in a parking lot outside a diner in Baton Rouge, with the sun going down behind her and her 18 deployment Red Cross jacket draped over her arm. She said, "Son, the people who survive are not smarter than the people who do not. They are not stronger. They are not luckier. They are quieter. That is the only difference. They are quieter. Be quiet. Survive. That is the whole thing. Be quiet. Survive. That is the whole thing." My name is Raccoon Survival. This was episode 13 of the season. The next episode is in production now, and I will see you when it drops. Until then, hide the 11. Tell no one. Wave from the driveway. Bring the casserole. Be a good neighbor and a good person and a quiet preparer. The day 9 you do not see is the day 9 you survive. Stockpile quiet or stockpile nothing.